Good morning, if it's morning where you're at. My name's Randall Meek, and I am the owner of the Philippines Project YouTube channel, and I'm here to tell you a story. So if you want to hear a story about how I met my wife from the Philippines, stay tuned. Okay, so we're back. A lot of people asked me when I first got married about my wife and how did you meet somebody from another country? How did you meet somebody from the Philippines? And what's the deal on that? Why did you go to another country and find a woman? So basically this video is about, I'm gonna try to really restrict it. I like to talk, but I'm really gonna try to restrict it to how I met my wife. Okay, back in 1999, I was divorced. I was around 40 years old. And so, I wasn't in a hurry to get married or anything like that. I wasn't against it. I'm a person who likes to have somebody around and have a partner in life. That's just me. I mean, that's just who I am. So, I was kind of looking in a way, and I dated a little bit. But one day my brother was over at my house. He's 3 years younger than me, and I can remember the exact place where he was standing in my little hallway there. I'd moved out of my house and, had to move away. And divorce is it's a horrible thing. It just is. And I'm not going to get into that, but I remember him standing in the hallway and we were talking about meeting women. He's a single guy. And he said, "You know what Dad said?" I said, "No, what?" And he said, "Well, Dad said that me and you ought to meet a woman from the Philippines." I'm like, "What?" And I really hadn't thought about that, but we have a little bit of history with the Philippines. My brother was in the Air Force back in, I don't know the date. He was in the Air Force, and he actually, when they had an Air Force base here in the Philippines, he actually passed away here. His apartment caught on fire, and he died here in the Philippines. And of course, they sent his body back, and we had a funeral and all that. So I had a little bit of a history there, and kind of a place I kind of always wanted to go. And he spoke of it very highly. He said, I remember one time he said, the people here don't have a lot of money, but he said it's really strange. They're like, as long as they have a little bit of food, they're some of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. And he was a 24-year-old young man in a service, and so he was here. So that's a little bit of why I might have been curious. Well, when my brother said that, I don't know, just something clicked in my mind. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting idea. How do I pursue something like that? How would I go about even meeting somebody from the Philippines? Because, I'm in the Midwest in the United States. I'm just a guy who, I'm a local truck driver. And, how do you even do something like this? Well, this was back in the days of dial-up internet. And I had purchased a computer for about $600. And it was like this big, huge boat anchor type monitor, I call it. It was dial-up, and, you'd start up your computer and you'd walk away and go cook a meal, come back, it might be up, it might not. So, and pictures and videos were not even a reality at all back then. But my kids were kind of hooked on these chat rooms. And so I thought, well, who knows? Maybe there's a chat room that, I don't know, I'm just grasping at straws. And sorry, I had to kind of stop the video there for a second. Here in the Philippines, there's quite a bit of noise, and so I wanted to put my little AirPods in and maybe make a little better sound quality, and you don't hear barking dogs and roosters and political advertisements. They have trucks that go by, and they play loudspeakers with political slogans and stuff. They're having an election up here in May. So anyway, where was I at? Okay, so I was looking, into like, how would I find out about something like this? How would I meet somebody from another country? And it intrigued me. So I got online one night, and back then MSN Chat. You remember that? And Yahoo Chat. There was a lot of different chat. What do you call them? Modules or whatever you want to call them. So I got on there and I'm looking around. I never really had been into it. I talked to my daughters on chat a little bit, or they lived about 45 minutes away. So that was my experience. So I got on there one night after work. It was late at night, and so I started looking through this Yahoo thing. It was like, oh, they got different groups. They've got political chat, they've got geographical chat. I thought, I wonder if they have different chats for different countries. So I went over and I looked at that, and I was like, wow, every country was represented, and some of them had several different groups that you could be in. And I saw they had other groups for a lot of different reasons. So anyway, I just clicked on one that said Philippines chat. Like, that's what my dad had said. I'm not like blindly following what he said, but I was interested, so that's what I did. And anyway, I clicked on this, and if you remember, or if you know, it's like the different sentences as people chat, it would just go up like this, and you could try to read it. Well, I don't know what the language was, but it was like half of it, or a portion of it was English. Most of it was nonsensical to me. I had no idea what they were talking about, and of course you couldn't hear them. I think they had a mic feature. You might have been able to get in there if you had a mic and all this stuff, but anyway, long story short, I didn't know. So I just typed in something like, does anybody want to chat, or something very innocuous like that, and you get a couple little responses. I don't even know. But anyway, this one girl sent me a private message, and I was like, whoa, a little balloon pops up and you can start chatting with somebody. And so she was nice. Turned out she was a friend of my current wife now. And she said, well, I live in India. And I'm like, okay, India. Well, but she was born and raised in the Philippines. So I talked to her, and she knew quite a bit of English, which was very handy, because what they were talking was, there's no way. There's no way I could have ever even thought about communicating with anybody. So that was an obstacle, I thought. And that's the way life is. Sometimes the obstacles are just right in your head. They're not actual obstacles. And what I didn't realize is Filipinos, as far as Southeast Asia goes, they know more English than any other country. They're more westernized than any other country. And so I learned that much that night. And she, we talked for a while, and come to find out, she actually lived in Ohio with her husband, and her husband was on business to India, and he was an IT specialist. And so we talked, and she told me about this friend of hers that she had met in Singapore. And I'm like, Singapore? What the heck, Or I didn't even know what Singapore. It's like, yeah, I kind of heard of it, but what is it? Is it a country? Is it a city? Well, long story short, Singapore is a city-state. It's a city country, and it's just south of Malaysia. And so she told me about her. I said, well, give me your information. She said, no, I can't do that, but I will contact her, and then I'll get back with you. So she did, and the next day she sent me my wife Flora's email address so I could contact her. So the next night I got home from work, and I'm all excited, hoping I got an email or something like that. We didn't have phone. I didn't even have phone back then, and email was, I just barely knew anything about it. So I'm waiting on an email. I get home and I fire at my computer, and it was like just in a flash, in 15 minutes it was up and running. So slow. So anyway, all the excitement, I go in there and I'm firing up that computer, and I'm waiting, and boom, I had got this email from this woman, and she had given me my wife's, my future wife's current email address. So I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Now what do I do? So I thought, okay, I'm going to send her an email. And I wasn't looking for, I'm just a normal dude, man. I'm just a regular Midwestern guy. I wasn't looking for some kind of weird sex tourism type thing. There's a lot of people out there that do that stuff, and that's just not me. I'm just not geared that way. I was looking for somebody I could spend the rest of my life with. And so I thought I'll just draft an email. So I went and I basically told a story about myself, who I was, what I did for a living, how many children I had, and I told about my divorce a little bit, and just basically a bio of myself. And I clicked send. I was like, okay, here goes nothing, you know. So, of course, that next 24 hours was kind of like in the pit of my stomach. I was like, wow, what's going to happen now? You know, I'd went from what my dad had said to, and me and my brother talking about it, to discovering what a chat room was, to talking to a Filipino woman, Filipina they're called, and then to actually sending an email to one specific Filipino woman that I didn't know, who lived in Singapore nonetheless. I'm like, wow, this is outside my comfort zone, you know. This is, which it was so exciting, you know, and that's what you learn once you learn how to do things outside of your comfort zone. You find out that is the spice of life. That's the excitement in life that you can have for yourself. It doesn't matter your circumstance. It doesn't matter where you're at right now. I always say, do with what you have. And that's all I was doing. I was just like clawing in the darkness, you know, trying to maybe find a wife, who knows, or just somebody to talk to. So anyway, I get back the next night, and, you know, I get back in from work, and, you know, I fire up the computer, and I get this email back, and she basically did the same thing. And this woman that I had no idea, she, I'm hearing noises up here, she had sent me an email back. And so we emailed, I think, 2 times, and we had set up a phone call. And I said, I'm going to call you. She wanted me to call her, so I was going to call her like the next night when I got in. This is like 24-hour blocks of time, and you can just imagine the excitement of like, hey, this could be something, you know. I didn't know. But it was just all, you call it risk, you can call it, you know, just throwing caution to the wind or whatever. I was doing something that, shoot, a lot of people think is weird, and a lot of people did think it was weird, you know, even when my wife came to the United States. But so the next night, I'm getting ready to call her, and I get home from work, and, you know, I'm like, probably take a shower and just, you know, get my mind settled right, and I pick up the phone, and little did I know how much it was going to cost. But I talked to her for 20 minutes, and it cost me like $88 on AT&T. So I was, you know, I didn't know that till the next phone bill came. But when the phone rang, she knew what time it was going to be. She worked for somebody in Singapore. She had even told them, really nice people that she worked for, she had told them, I'm going to get this phone call. I think her employer probably was even in the background, because she loved my wife. She loved Flora, and she wanted to make sure that everything was going to be okay. So I talked to her for like 20 minutes, and from the moment that her voice came over the phone, it was just something different. You could just feel it. It was it was so tangible. And man, I could say I knew right then, and you might say, no, there's no way you could have known. Well, I felt like at the time that I did know. And she was just so sweet sounding on the phone, and so funny. I heard her laugh, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to have that laugh in my house, closer to me. I mean, I've got to have that. You know, it was just such an infectious laughter. And if you ever meet her, I hope maybe I can get her on camera sometime. She's an amazing woman. And, you know, long story short, she completely changed my life. That's why, you know, the emotion kind of comes. But if you only knew where I was and the kind of man she helped me become, you would be literally amazed. And I'm amazed every day. You know, of course, do we have little struggles here and little arguments here and there? Sure. You know, I'm not going to paint you an unrealistic picture. And, you know, just because you get a woman from the Philippines doesn't mean that everything's going to be roses and they're all perfect wives. They're not. They're just like anybody else. but I told her, I said, you know, I think it is true that women from the Philippines are a lot more family oriented, and they, you know, they're more loyal for the most part, not all, but I'll tell you what, I told her, overall, yeah, they're like that. But when I got her, I won the lottery, you know. So, you know, I was just that first phone call did it for me. And then we talked. This was 2001, and we talked every morning and every night. And she taught me how to buy a phone card. And I was spending about $80 a month. Maybe $100 a month, just talking for 20 minutes twice a day. And she would call me from Singapore. It was cheaper for her to call than it was for me to call. But then I wanted to share that expense with her. She wasn't making much money, and that's a whole nother story for a different day. But in 2001, that was the year that 9/11 happened. So this country was, transportation-wise, was on lockdown pretty much. But after a few months, I talked to her, I think, for the first time in October, the 1st or the 5th, something like that. And then we talked every day, twice a day. She would call and she would wake me up. She said, I want to call you in the morning. I want to wake you up. I said, okay. You know, and she would do that every morning. And sometimes I'd get home late because I worked a dock at a freight company, and I drove a truck during the day, and I'd get home late. Sometimes I'd hear that sweet voice on that answering machine, and you know, it's just nothing like that, walking into that and listening to that voice. And then, you know, we exchanged pictures and stuff like that. Really, video chat wasn't even a thing, so I mean, I didn't have a lot of idea even what she looked like, other than she's from the Philippines, you know. So yeah, so I flew to Singapore. I bought a ticket. It cost me $900 back in 2001, and that's not a lot of money, but you know, back then it was everything in the world to me. But I flew to Singapore. You cannot imagine. I flew from St. Louis to Minneapolis, and then got on a plane, Minneapolis to Japan. And from Japan to the Philippines, I don't know, it was like 2 to 3 hours, but you cannot imagine, you know, what kind of excitement was building up in my heart at that point. And because I was going to meet that person I've been talking to for, you know, 3 months, 2 months, whatever, every day. And she'd become such an important part of my life. I was just so excited, and we're in the air. And I can remember, if you ever flown anywhere, like the last 20 minutes of your flight is usually in descent, right? You know, they're going to descend for like 20 minutes and land at the airport. And so anyway, had left Narita Airport in Japan, and we were on the way to Singapore, and I knew she'd be there waiting on me at the airport. The excitement that was building in my heart, and I know it was in hers because she had told me that, and was just incredible. And we're going down in the plane. I'm thinking, this is really happening, you know. And I've got, you know, some of her correspondence there with me, and you know, her letter or whatever, and her picture and all this stuff. And like, am I going to be able to recognize her when I get there? How are we going to meet up? I mean, Singapore is totally different than any place I've ever lived, and one of the greatest places I've ever visited. And I landed, and I'm getting my luggage, and I'm kind of looking around. They've got this huge wall of glass, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of people in there. And you know, it's Asia. You know, there's expats there. There's, you know, regular Americans, Canadians, Chinese, mostly a Chinese country. But so I'm wondering, you know, big glass wall here, and I'm looking over, and I don't see anything. So all I can do is pick up my bags, and you know, I see the exit where you go out into the, you know, out into where, you know, you get into Singapore. So into the next part of the airport. So there's this big glass door, and it opens up, and there's this there's this little short lady standing there, and this big white lady standing next to her, and she was actually her employer. She'd went to the airport. She drove to the airport, and very nice people, very nice Canadians. They actually live in Connecticut now, and they had helped her, and so there she stands, you know. Of course, we smile and hug and everything like that, but so many little things, you know, that I remember about that. And I don't think about it often. Kind of, you can tell it's kind of emotional for me, but man, just to hear her voice in person and to know that's the one that, you know, had become so important to me. And then she's short, a little tiny lady, and I never will forget, she got these little flip-flops on, this little black pair of flip-flops with hard bottoms on them, and everything is tile floor. And just to hear her walk across the floor, you know, the little click-clack of those flip-flops, and I can still remember the clothes she wore, and I remember the taxi ride back, you know, to take me to my hotel. She had to go, she lived with her employers, you know, she's a maid, and she took care of the Canadian couple, cooked the meals, did the laundry, took care of the cat and the dog, and you know, she had a fairly busy little life there, and you know, that's what she did, and she sent a lot of her money back home to her family in the Philippines. And I remember that taxi ride, you know, it's like, do I reach over and touch her? Do I, what do I do? You know, it's just kind of that first awkward moment, and I reached over and just pat her on the leg, you know, and she just grabbed my hand, and you know, you can't put a price on that. You know, life's worth living, and you know, we've been married for almost 20 years now, and she's really helped me become a lot better man. And I was a good guy, but she helped me to believe in myself. And you know, that's why, you know, today, you know, long story short, we've got a nice house here in the Philippines that we built over the last 3 years, and we've improved it a lot. I'm upstairs on the 3rd floor in a little structure called a Bahay Kubo. That's Filipino for, it's just like a little rest house. They call them rest house here. It's just like a little gazebo kind of thing, but it's got seats in it, and the breezes come through, and it keeps you out of the sun. And you know, I never would have believed I'd had a house in the Philippines. I never would have believed that I'd traveled to Vietnam, I've traveled to Singapore, we've been, you know, all kinds of different places all over the United States. Yeah, we spent several days in Vietnam, and she's the reason for that. You know, they say there's somebody for everyone, but she was like my confidence. You know, she's just built me up. And you know, I was an employee. Nothing wrong with being an employee, but after a few years, we started our own business, and I quit. I worked for FedEx, and I quit FedEx, and we started a company, and then we started 2 companies, and pretty much she got out of the business after a while because she didn't need to work, and we were doing well, and I did well, I have to say. And I got to be 60 years old, and I thought, you know, I'm kind of tired of doing this. So I went to a business broker, and we sold the business, and about 6 months ago we retired. You know, I've been on here almost 20 minutes. I apologize for the length, but I hope you got something out of the story. You know, I wouldn't change a thing. You know, I would not change a thing. So that's all I've got. I'm going to quit rambling. But if you have any questions about the Philippines, you know, please go down in the comments right now. If you're thinking of moving here, you're thinking about, you know, what's it like over there. That's kind of what this channel is about, is, you know, the things that I love about the Philippines, and, you know, and our life here and our life in America. We have a good life there. I've been here a little over a month this time, and we'll be here almost another 3 weeks. We're going to go back, but I'll probably spend a lot of time over here from now on. So we really enjoy it, and there's going to be more videos to come. So subscribe right now so you don't miss out anything. Hit that notification bell, so when I do another video, you'll get notified. You don't have to watch it right then. I used to think, oh, I don't want all the interruptions. Well, at least you get notified. Hey, there's another video tonight when I get home. You know, I'll watch it. So Anyway, I appreciate if you made it this far. You are an absolute champion, and I appreciate you. I've got a couple of new subscribers on this new channel. Rona, I remember, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to figure out who the other guy is, but there's been several more subscribers, so I appreciate you guys. And if you want more content like this, like and subscribe, and we'll do more videos. Thank you.